It is Wednesday, the 25th. Yeah, 25th of February. And I had a patient come in today that he came in, and he's been in several times. I mean, I know the guy and I know his wife, and he had been in the hospital the last few weeks, and I kind of remember him saying something about not doing well last time, but he didn't really divulge too much. This time his wife actually said, he was diagnosed recently with Lewy body dementia. And, I mean, of course I've heard of it, but never really dug into it to see what exactly it was. And he started talking about it. And, what really kind of brought all of this up was that, his hearing aids are older. And I said, you really should start looking at some new hearing aids. He said, I'm not buying new. And I said, well, I can't sell you used ones. But he said no. He said, I'm too old. And I'm looking at this guy, he's not even 80 yet. And I said, there's no way that you're too old. I said, I've sold new hearing aids to people who are, 92, 94. I mean, you're not too old to hear better. You're not too old to enjoy your life. And that's when this all came out, that he was diagnosed with this, and it sounds like he's had it for about 6 years, and they didn't really know that's what it was until recently. I mean, I don't know how recent, if it's just been months or a year or so. But he was diagnosed with this down at Mayo, and he said, they watched a video. Now, I don't know if this was something that the doctor told them to do or if they just looked it up or what, but he said, we watched a video on this, and he said, before I get to that point, he said, I'll kill myself before I get there. And I'm like, holy crap, what? And he said it was absolutely horrific. He already is sleeping with rails on the bed, not only so that he doesn't fall out of bed, but also for her protection. Because when he dreams, and this is something that apparently is a symptom of Lewy body, that they act out their dreams, and they're not usually pleasant dreams. So, to protect her from, punches or kicks or, whatever, he's caged in, basically, at night. And I can't imagine knowing that this is what I have. It's only going to get worse, and it will kill me. Fortunately they were very open, and I'm very comfortable with a lot of my patients, and I'll get into, deep conversations with them sometimes. And I asked him, I said, is this anything like, because there's several different types of dementia, and dementia is kind of a blanket over a whole bunch of different things: Alzheimer's, Lewy body, frontal temporal, and there's another one too, but it's a kind of a blanket term. And I said, is it anything like with Alzheimer's, where they say that you don't remember, you don't know? And they said it's not really the same, because Alzheimer's is more memory issue, where Lewy body is more physical, I think, or I'm not sure. There is a difference. There's a big difference between the two. But we were talking about it, and I said, I was like, my uncle, for example, had Alzheimer's, and it was like he couldn't remember things, But at the same time, it was like he was still him. But yet he wasn't. You know, he could... How do I explain it? It was like he knew that something wasn't right. He knew that things were different. You know, he knew that he should be... you know, for example, at one point... apparently he was being changed or cleaned by one of the nurses or whatever, and my mom just happened to be down there visiting, and when she went back in, apparently he was crying because he was embarrassed. And if you're, you know, I would think, you know, and I'm obviously very wrong, but maybe not quite, I don't know, but I mean, I would think that he wouldn't know to be embarrassed, but he did. So, you know, that's something my husband is really afraid of, is when you have Alzheimer's, do you really not know or remember, or are you just not able to convey that you're there? You know, I don't know, this whole thing with the dementia thing, it's just really it really got to me today. It really did. You know, it's not anything that I'd want to play with, that's for sure. You know, say they have, you know, there's early onset or young onset dementia, and that is anybody below 65. Usually it's like above 30, but it's anybody below the age of 65 that gets dementia has early onset. And, you know, things that they say will, you know, give you a higher chance of getting it. You would have like, you know, obviously a genetic component to it. There would be, you know, you may have some sort of, I don't know, but another thing was traumatic brain injuries. And, you know, that's something that kind of wigs me out a little bit, because someone that I know and love very much has had a lot of traumatic brain injuries. And looking at, you know, I mean, the doctor said that he will have early onset dementia because of the traumatic brain injuries that he's had. You know, how can they know that for sure? I don't know. You know, maybe they just said that because they're doctors and they think they can. I don't know. Maybe he really will. I don't know. But that's something that really frightens me, is, you know, when you see someone every day, how are you going to know? You know, will I get the, will I see the symptoms, or will they just happen so slowly that I won't catch it until it's too late? You know, I mean, I know people who have lived with a spouse or a friend or, you know, a family member that they've had dementia and they didn't know it because they see them every day. It came on slowly. They didn't notice that things were off until it was too late. Until this person was so far off that they couldn't take him home. They had to stay somewhere else. You know, these kinds of things really get to me. They really kind of freak me out. So you know, I think about like my patient today and his wife, that, I mean, what's she going through? You know, what is she dealing with? You know, he was just in the hospital because I think he had like not sure if it was the flu or what he had, influenza, or if he had something else. I'm not sure, but I think about her. I think about all of the caretakers out there, all the spouses whose spouse will have dementia coming up, and they're taking care of them, and I cannot imagine that that's going to be easy. That's something that I just, I pray for all of you out there that are doing that, and I pray for all of us out there that are going to be dealing with that. Sorry this wasn't a happy thing, but I had to say something because it was weighing on me so much. So anyway, I hope you all have a good evening. Hug your family, hug your spouse, because you just don't know. You just don't know. All right, well, smile. So I'll try to find something a little nicer to talk about next time. Still working on that podcast, trying to get things figured out, trying to get some logistics figured out, but hopefully it'll be soon. I have been watching a lot of things on YouTube by the gal Cass, and I forget what her last name is, but she's Clutterbug, the Clutterbug. I've been watching a lot of her stuff, and I have discovered that I knew that I pick up on accents. I remember when we went to Colorado for our band trip in high school, and we went into this gift shop, and I'm standing there checking out, and the guy that was at the counter had an accent, and my friend Kelly was standing next to me, and I'm gonna go to check out, and he said something, and I responded back to him, and as we walked out, she said, you do know that you just said that in an accent, right? And I'm like, what? So apparently I do that, and I have caught myself talking like a Canuck, a Canadian. So I am saying out, and Bill says I do that all the time anyway, which I didn't think I did, and I think that's kind of funny, but now I'm noticing it. So apparently I have picked up on Cass's cute little accent. So I mean, I only live 3 hours from the border, so it's not like I'm that far away from it, but still, I thought it was kind of funny. Anyway, so okay, I did end up a little bit on the happy side here, so we'll call that good for now. Anyway, I love you guys. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you later. Love you guys. Bye.